He was never late before she started being early. I noticed it first on a Tuesday, the way his keys hit the bowl at 6:47 instead of 6:15. The sound was the same, that dull metal clink against ceramic, but the timing had shifted, like a song played half a beat too slow. I was standing at the kitchen counter, still in my work clothes, cutting vegetables I wouldn't remember eating. The knife moved automatically, carrots, then celery, then the hollow sound of the blade against wood. "Traffic was hell," he said, loosening his tie. I nodded. Traffic was always hell on Tuesdays. It had been hell for 7 years of Tuesdays, and he had never been late before. This isn't fiction. This is how love disappears, one small truth at a time. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a building that always smelled faintly of someone else's cooking. The walls were cream-colored, the furniture was modest, and the kitchen window faced east, which meant morning light but evening shadows. We had been together since college, the kind of relationship people called comfortable, which I had always interpreted as a compliment until I began to understand it might also be a diagnosis. His name was Michael. Mine is Sarah. These details matter less than what we became to each other. Familiar, necessary, and eventually invisible. Our life had a rhythm. He worked in software development. I worked in hospital administration. We woke at 6:30, showered in sequence to save water, drank coffee from matching blue mugs his mother had given us as a housewarming gift. We texted throughout the day, logistical messages mostly, reminders about bills and groceries and whose turn it was to call his parents. On Wednesdays, we ordered Thai food. On Saturdays, we did laundry. On Sundays, we pretended to meal prep for the week, but usually ended up eating sandwiches by Thursday. It was ordinary. It was ours. My best friend was named Ava. She lived 3 blocks away in a studio apartment she had decorated with plants and string lights and an almost aggressive optimism about being single. She had never liked Michael, not disliked him exactly, but tolerated him the way you tolerate a friend's questionable taste in music. "Too bland," she once said after a dinner party. "Too steady, like oatmeal." "You deserve someone loyal," she told me one evening in late September, sitting cross-legged on my couch with a glass of red wine. We had been talking about her ex-boyfriend who had cheated on her with a coworker, but somehow the conversation had turned to me. "Someone who sees you? Michael's a good guy, I guess, but does he really see you?" I laughed it off. "He sees me every day." That's not the same thing. I didn't know then that this would be the last conversation I would have with her where I felt completely safe. The first real fracture came 2 weeks later. I was looking for my phone charger. I thought I had left it on the nightstand, but it wasn't there. I checked the kitchen counter, the coffee table, the bathroom. Then I saw Michael's jacket draped over the chair in the corner of our bedroom, the one he had worn the night before. I reached into the pocket. His phone was there, face down, still warm. I didn't mean to look. Or maybe I did. Maybe by that point, some part of me was already searching for confirmation of something I couldn't yet name. The screen lit up as I lifted it. No password. There never had been. We trusted each other. The most recent message was from Ava. "I miss you." 2 words. Sent at 11:43 p.m. the previous night. No context, no conversation thread visible above it. He must have deleted the rest. My heartbeat didn't speed up. It stopped, just for a second, the way a car engine cuts out before it dies completely. Then it kicked back in, too hard, too loud. I set the phone down carefully, exactly where I had found it. I picked up my own charger from where it had been plugged in behind the bed the entire time. I didn't say anything. By the time the leaves changed, I had learned the specific weight of pretending. I watched him differently now. Not obviously, I didn't rifle through his things or demand explanations. But I paid attention. I noticed when he smiled at his phone and angled it away from me. I noticed when he started shaving more carefully in the mornings, when he bought new cologne, when he said he was going to the gym but came home without the smell of sweat. He still kissed me goodbye. He still asked about my day. He still reached for me in bed sometimes, half asleep, his hand finding my hip in the dark. And I still let him. Because the alternative was acknowledging what I already knew, and I wasn't ready. Not yet. Ava texted me constantly. Memes, articles, invitations for coffee. "Miss you, babe. Let's catch up soon." I replied the way I always had. Friendly, warm, normal. Because what do you say when you suspect your best friend and your boyfriend are orbiting each other in a space you can't see? What do you accuse them of when you have no proof except a feeling that sits in your stomach like swallowed glass? The receipts started appearing in mid-November. I found the first one in the pocket of his jeans before washing them. A coffee shop 3 miles from our apartment, a place we had never been together. 2 drinks, paid at 7:15 p.m. on a Thursday. He had told me he was working late that night. The second receipt was from a bookstore. A single purchase, a poetry collection by Mary Oliver. I had never known Michael to read poetry. When I asked him about it casually, "Did you buy a book recently?" he looked confused. "No, wow, just wondering." He shrugged and returned to his laptop. I searched our apartment later that night while he was in the shower. I checked his nightstand, his drawers, the closet. I even looked under the bed, feeling ridiculous and desperate and sick. The book wasn't there, which meant he had given it to someone else. Some weeks later, I stood in our kitchen and realized I couldn't remember the last time he had touched me with intention. Not sex, though that had become infrequent, mechanical, something we did out of habit rather than desire, but touch. The way he used to brush his hand against my lower back when he passed behind me. The way he used to tuck my hair behind my ear when I was cooking. The way he used to pull me close on the couch, absent-mindedly like I was part of his body and he couldn't be comfortable without me. All of that had stopped. I hadn't noticed when. Only that now, standing 3 feet from him while he scrolled through his phone, I felt like we were standing in different rooms. "I'm going to Ava's tomorrow," I said. He didn't look up. "Okay. We haven't hung out in a while." "That's good. You should." His voice was kind, supportive, even. It made everything worse. I went to Ava's apartment on a Saturday afternoon. She opened the door in leggings and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked happy to see me, genuinely happy. She hugged me tightly, and I hugged her back, and I thought, if you've been sleeping with him, you're a better actress than I ever gave you credit for. We drank tea. We talked about work, about her dating app disasters, about a movie she wanted to see. She asked about Michael. "He's fine," I said. "Busy." "He's always busy." She rolled her eyes. "I don't know how you deal with that." "It's just how he is." "You're too patient, Sarah. Seriously." She leaned forward, her expression softening. "You know you deserve someone who prioritizes you, right? Someone who's actually present." The words sounded rehearsed. Or maybe I was paranoid. Maybe this was just how Ava talked. Earnest, maternal, convinced she knew what I needed better than I did. "I know," I said. "Do you?" She reached across the coffee table and squeezed my hand. "Because sometimes I worry that you've settled, that you're so focused on being loyal to him that you're not asking if he's being loyal to you." There it was, the word, loyal. I pulled my hand back gently, wrapped both hands around my mug. "Why would you say that?" "Say what?" "That thing about loyalty," she blinked, confused or pretending to be. "I just mean, I don't know. I want you to be happy, and lately you don't seem happy." I left an hour later. I told her I had errands to run. She hugged me again at the door, held on a second too long, and said, "Love you, babe." I didn't say it back. Years can pass inside a single evening. It was a Wednesday in early December. Michael had texted me that afternoon. "Working late. Don't wait up." I replied with a thumbs up emoji, then spent the rest of the day feeling hollow. I left work at 5. I stopped at the grocery store, bought ingredients for a dinner I wouldn't cook. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, listening to the heater blow warm air that didn't reach me. Then I drove to Ava's apartment. I don't know why. Or maybe I do. Maybe I had known for weeks that I needed to see them together to make it real. Maybe I needed the pain to have a shape I could finally hold. I parked across the street. Her building was older than ours, brick with fire escapes zigzagging down the facade. Her studio was on the second floor. The lights were on. I sat in the car. I waited. Michael's car pulled up at 6:30. I watched him get out. I watched him check his phone. I watched him walk to her building, open the door with a key, he had a key, and disappear inside. I didn't move. I couldn't. My hands were still on the steering wheel, gripping it so tightly my knuckles had gone white. My breath fogged the windshield. I wiped it away with my sleeve, kept watching. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. The light in her apartment stayed on. The curtains were drawn, but I could see shadows moving inside. Two shapes, close together, separating, coming together again. I started the car, I drove home. I unlocked the door to our apartment, walked inside, turned on every light. I sat on the couch in the brightness and waited. He came home at 10:15. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys in the bowl. "You're still up?" "Yeah." He walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water. "How was your day?" "Fine." He leaned against the counter, drank slowly. He looked tired. There was a small red mark on his neck, just above his collar. It could have been anything, a scratch, irritation from his shirt, but it wasn't. "Where were you?" I asked. "Work, I told you." "You weren't at work." He froze, the glass halfway to his mouth. Then he set it down carefully. "What?" "I saw you, Michael. I saw you go into Ava's building." The silence that followed was not loud or angry. It was empty. It was the sound of a room after something has been removed from it and nothing has been put back. He didn't deny it. That was almost worse. "How long?" I asked. He looked at the floor. "Sarah." "How long?" 3 months. His voice was barely audible. "A little over 3 months." I nodded. 3 months. That meant it started in September, before she told me I deserved someone loyal. While she was sitting on this couch, drinking wine, telling me Michael didn't see me. "Why her?" He rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't know." "That's not an answer." "I don't have a better one." He looked up at me finally, and I saw something I didn't expect: shame. Not defiance, not anger, just exhaustion and shame. "It just happened. We started talking more. She was easy to talk to, and you and I, we were just going through the motions. You know that." "So you went to her." "I didn't plan it." "But you kept doing it." He had no response to that. "Did you love her?" I asked. "No." He said it quickly. "No, Sarah. I love you." "Then why?" "Because she made me feel like I mattered." The words hung between us. I wanted them to sound cruel, to give me permission to hate him. But they didn't. They sounded true. And truth, I was learning, is not the same as justice. "You matter to me, I said. "I know. But you stopped showing it." We both did. He was right. I hated that he was right. "So what now?" I asked. "I don't know." We stood there, two people who had built a life together, and we didn't know how to dismantle it. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight," he said finally. I didn't argue. He packed a bag, clothes, toiletries, his laptop. He moved through the apartment like a ghost, and I sat on the couch and watched him erase himself from the space we had shared. At the door, he stopped. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I really am." I believed him. "So am I." He left. The door closed. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the clock that had always ticked too loudly. I didn't cry, not then. The days after felt like walking through water. Michael stayed at the hotel for a week, then moved in with a coworker temporarily. We texted about logistics, bills, lease, who would take what furniture. The conversations were polite, distant. We were already practicing how to be strangers. I didn't speak to Ava. She called 4 times, texted a dozen more. "Sarah, please, let me explain. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. Please don't hate me." I didn't hate her. I didn't feel anything toward her at all, which was somehow worse. One evening, I finally responded, "Don't contact me again." She didn't. The apartment felt larger without him. I had never noticed how much space one person could occupy until that space was empty. His blue mug sat in the cabinet. I couldn't bring myself to use it or throw it away. It just sat there, a monument to something that used to be routine. I started sleeping on his side of the bed. I don't know why. Maybe because it still smelled like him. Maybe because I wanted to prove I could exist in the places he had left behind. My mother called. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine." "I'm functioning. That counts as fine." She sighed. "Do you want me to come visit?" "No, thank you, but no." I didn't want comfort. I didn't want anyone to tell me it would get better, that I would heal, that this was just a chapter. I wanted to sit in the wreckage and understand what had been destroyed. By January, Michael and I had signed the paperwork to break the lease. He took the couch, the coffee table, some dishes. I kept the bed, the blue mugs, the kitchen window that faced east. We met one last time to exchange keys. It was at a coffee shop, not the one from the receipt, somewhere neutral. He looked different, thinner maybe, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time in months. "How are you?" he asked. "Getting by, you?" "Same." We sat across from each other, 2 cups of coffee we barely touched between us. "Are you still—" I didn't finish the question. I didn't need to. "No," he said. That ended. Almost immediately after everything came out. It wasn't what I thought it was. "What was it?" He considered. "A mistake, a distraction. I don't know. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me." He met my eyes. "It was me being selfish. It was me not knowing how to tell you I was lonely without blaming you for it. And that's on me. Not you. Not her. Me." I nodded slowly. It wasn't an apology. It was something more honest than that. "Do you think we could have fixed it?" I asked. "If we had tried?" "I don't know. Maybe. But we didn't try, did we? We just let it rot." He was right. We had both been complicit in the decay. He had sought comfort elsewhere. I had ignored the signs until they were impossible to miss. We had loved each other once, truly, and then we had loved each other out of habit, and then we had stopped even pretending. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said. "You too." We left the coffee shop separately. I walked to my car, got in, sat in the driver's seat. I didn't cry, I just breathed. In the quiet that followed, I began to understand that healing is not the same as forgetting. I moved to a smaller apartment across town. 1 bedroom, hardwood floors, a kitchen window that faced west. Evening light instead of morning. It felt like a fair trade. I didn't date, I didn't want to. I focused on work, on friends. The real ones, the ones who showed up without asking what they could gain. I started running in the mornings. I read the Mary Oliver poetry collection I found at a used bookstore, and I understood why someone might give it as a gift. Sometimes I thought about Michael, not with anger or longing, but with a kind of curious detachment, the way you think about a version of yourself you no longer recognize. Sometimes I thought about Ava. Those thoughts were harder, not because I missed her, but because I had to reconcile the person I thought she was with the person she had actually been. They weren't the same. Maybe they never had been. I saw them once, months later, by accident. They were at a farmer's market, walking side by side but not touching. They looked uncomfortable, temporary, like 2 people who had discovered they had nothing in common except the person they had betrayed. I turned and walked the other way, not because I was afraid, but because they were no longer part of my story. The truth about betrayal is that it doesn't end with the revelation, it echoes. You hear it in the way you second-guess kindness, in the way you keep your distance even when closeness is offered, in the way you learn that some wounds close but never fully heal. But the truth about love is more complicated. I had loved Michael. I had loved him in the easy days when everything felt possible, and I had loved him in the quiet days when we stopped trying, and I had loved him even after I knew what he had done. Love doesn't switch off cleanly. It lingers, even when trust has died, even when the future you imagined has been dismantled and repurposed into something unrecognizable. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not that he betrayed me, not that she betrayed me, but that love survived the betrayal, stubborn and irrational, refusing to leave even when it had every reason to. But love without trust is not enough. I learned that too. One evening, nearly a year after everything had ended, I was sitting in my new apartment, drinking tea, watching the sun set through my west-facing window. The light was golden and soft, the kind of light that makes everything look gentler than it is. I thought about the question Ava had asked me that night on the couch. Does he really see you? The answer had been no. But the better question, the one I should have asked myself, was, do you see yourself? Because somewhere in the routine and the compromise and the pretending, I had stopped being visible even to myself. I had become half of something, and when that something broke, I didn't know who I was on my own. It took time. It took silence. It took learning how to sit with discomfort and not run from it. But slowly I found myself again. Not the version from before. That version was gone. A new one. Sharper, maybe, more careful, but also braver because I had survived the thing I thought would destroy me, and I was still here. The last time I thought about forgiveness, I realized it wasn't something I could give or withhold. It was something that happened quietly, without announcement, in the space between letting go and moving forward. I forgave Michael, not because he deserved it, but because holding on to anger was exhausting. I forgave Ava, not because she asked for it, but because her choices were hers to live with, not mine. I forgave myself, which was hardest. I kept the blue mug. I don't know why. Maybe because some relics are worth holding on to, not as reminders of pain, but as proof that something real once existed, even if it couldn't last. The ending I imagined for us never came. There was no dramatic closure, no final conversation where everything was said and understood. There was just distance and time and the slow realization that some chapters close without neat conclusions. I'm okay with that now, because the story was never about what he did or what she did. It was about what I learned, about how resilience looks quieter than you expect, about how you can be shattered and still find a way to be whole, just differently arranged. I don't know if I'll love again the way I loved him. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But I know I'll love differently, more carefully, but also more honestly. I'll ask the questions I avoided before. I'll trust my instincts instead of dismissing them. I'll choose someone who stays, not out of habit, but out of intention. Or maybe I'll choose myself for a while longer. That's okay too. The apartment is quiet now, but it's mine. The light comes in through the west window every evening, soft and forgiving. I make tea, I read. I exist without apology. Some nights I think about that first crack, the sound of his keys, hitting the bowl at 6:47 instead of 6:15, and how such a small shift in timing could signal the unraveling of everything. How a single moment could become the before and after. How love could fracture so quietly you didn't hear it break until you were already standing in the ruins. But other nights, I think about the woman I've become. The one who survived. The one who learned. The one who knows now that loyalty matters less than honesty, and love without truth is just a beautiful lie you tell yourself until you can't anymore. I don't talk to Michael. I don't talk to Ava. And I'm no longer waiting for either of them to tell me I mattered, because I already know I do. Peace came quietly, disguised as acceptance.